Ali Khamenei, the supreme leader who defied death until he couldn't. On June 27, 1981, a tape recorder exploded in front of Ali Khamenei at a Tehran mosque. The blast shattered his right arm and destroyed his vocal cords. Yet this near-death experience didn't end his political career. It launched him toward becoming one of the world's most powerful leaders. For 45 years, Khamenei survived multiple assassination attempts and ruled Iran with an iron fist. But on February 28, 2026, his luck finally ran out when coordinated U.S.-Israel strikes ended the life of Iran's second supreme leader. From modest beginnings to revolutionary. Born on July 17, 1939, in Mashhad, Iran, Ali Khamenei came from humble origins. His father, Javad Khamenei, was a Shia cleric of Azeri ethnicity who had studied at the holy sites of Najaf in Iraq. The family lived modestly. Khamenei later claimed they survived on bread, dates, and raisins in a one-room house, though this may be somewhat exaggerated. Young Ali's education was steeped in religious scholarship. In 1957, he began studying under Ayatollah Khomeini in the city of Qom, the man who would later become Iran's first supreme leader. This relationship would define Khamenei's entire life and political trajectory. A revolutionary in the making. The turning point came in 1963 when the Shah launched the White Revolution to modernize Iran along Western lines. And this threatened traditional Persian society and enraged religious clerics like Khomeini, who was arrested and eventually exiled in 1964. While Khomeini spent 14 years abroad, Khamenei remained in Iran, becoming a key figure in domestic opposition to the Shah. In 1967, Khamenei translated The Future in Islamic Lands by Egyptian scholar Sayyid Qutb from Arabic into Farsi, writing a foreword that boldly declared, "The future belongs to Islam." This act led to his first arrest by Savak, the Shah's notorious secret police. Between 1963 and 1979, Khamenei was arrested multiple times, spending months in solitary confinement. His longest detention was in 1975, when he was held from January to August in complete isolation. Despite the dangers, Khamenei married Mansoureh Khojasteh Baharzadeh in 1964. So little is known about her that no public photographs exist. She once revealed that from their first days of marriage, they discussed the possibility of his arrest. She viewed her role as providing stability during his frequent imprisonments. They had 6 children together, 4 sons and 2 daughters. The revolution and the bomb that nearly killed him. When revolution finally erupted in January 1979, the Shah fled on January 16th. Ayatollah Khomeini returned from exile on February 1st, and within 10 days, the old government collapsed. The Khamenei was revealed to be one of 13 members of the secret Islamic Revolutionary Council that orchestrated the transition to Islamic rule. The new regime faced immediate threats from various factions, Marxists, monarchists, and rival religious groups. On that fateful day in June 1981, the Furqan Group, a militant organization opposed to clerical rule, targeted Khamenei at the Abu Zar Mosque, and the tape recorder bomb left him permanently disabled, his right arm nearly paralyzed, and his voice reduced to a soft rasp that remained for the rest of his life. 6 days before the assassination attempt, Iran's first president had been impeached. Then, on August 30, 1981, the second president was assassinated after just 29 days in office. In October 1981 elections, a still-recovering Khamenei won by landslide, becoming Iran's third president at age 42. After 8 years of brutal war, Khamenei's presidency was dominated by the Iran-Iraq War. Saddam Hussein had invaded Iran in September 1980, fearing the revolution would spread to his Shia-majority country. What Hussein expected to be a quick victory turned into an 8-year nightmare that killed over 1 million people and saw extensive use of chemical weapons. Interestingly, Khamenei was among those who favored accepting Saddam's 1982 peace offer, demonstrating relative moderation. However, he was overruled by hardliners, and the conflict dragged on until 1988. During this period, Khamenei won re-election in 1985 with 87% of the vote, while overseeing punitive courts and brutal crackdowns on dissidents at home. The unexpected rise to supreme leader. When Ayatollah Khomeini died on June 3, 1989, at nearly 90 years old, There was no clear succession plan. The Assembly of Experts met the next day and, remarkably, chose Khamenei as a compromise candidate. And he won 60 votes to 14 at age 50. This decision was highly controversial. Khamenei had never completed his full religious training at Qom, having returned to Mashhad in the 1960s to care for his aging father. Many considered him vastly underqualified for the position of supreme leader. An unsubstantiated claim circulated that Khomeini himself had endorsed Khamenei before his death, which helped legitimize the succession. It's building an empire of control. One of Khamenei's first major moves was expanding the Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps, IRGC, originally established in 1979 as an internal religious army. Khamenei micromanaged its command structure, handpicking commanders to ensure absolute loyalty. By the 2000s, approximately 125,000 members served in the Guard Corps, nearly 1 in every 700 Iranians, making it a state within a state. Abroad, Khamenei built a network of proxy forces throughout the Middle East. He supported Hezbollah in Lebanon with billions in funding and advanced weapons. Despite Hezbollah being Shia and Hamas being Sunni, he backed Hamas in Gaza as a tool against Israel. Starting in 2009, he armed the Houthis in Yemen, support that helped spark the devastating Yemen civil war in 2014. This axis of resistance became Khamenei's signature foreign policy achievement. The nuclear obsession, Iran's nuclear program, began in 1957 under the Shah with U.S. assistance. Under Khamenei, however, the program became dangerously aggressive. China provided a fusion reactor in 1993, and Russia supplied technical expertise. Iran developed multiple nuclear sites at Fordo, Natanz, and Isfahan. Iran insisted it only wanted civilian nuclear power, but this claim was widely dismissed. Why would a country with vast oil and gas resources endure crippling economic sanctions for nuclear plants it didn't need? Western intelligence consistently assessed that Iran was pursuing nuclear weapons capability. The sanctions, first imposed in 1979 and dramatically tightened over the nuclear issue, devastated Iran's economy for decades. In 2015, Khamenei agreed to the Joint Comprehensive Plan of Action, JCPOA, with President Obama, which temporarily loosened sanctions. But in 2018, President Trump withdrew the U.S. from the deal, reimposing harsh restrictions. Iran's economy never fully recovered. To crushing all dissent, Khamenei's authoritarian grip tightened dramatically in the 2000s. In July 1999, students protested the shutdown of Salam newspaper, resulting in over a dozen deaths, the largest demonstrations since the revolution. When disputed elections in 2009 returned Mahmoud Ahmadinejad to power amid fraud allegations, millions protested. Khamenei ordered token recounts while unleashing the Revolutionary Guard to make mass arrests. In 2005, he created the Gasht-e-Ershad, or morality police, reporting directly to him to enforce Sharia law, particularly targeting women's dress code. In September 2022, the morality police arrested 22-year-old Mahsa Amini for allegedly wearing her hijab improperly. She died in custody 3 days later from head injuries sustained during her arrest. Amini's death sparked the largest protests in Iran's modern history. Under the slogan, "Woman, Life, Freedom," millions took to the streets for months. And the regime's response was brutal. Over 500 protesters were killed, including many children, and over 20,000 were arrested. Khamenei called the protesters rioters, backed by foreign enemies, and showed no mercy. When the Arab Spring failed in Iran, when the Arab Spring swept across the Middle East in 2011, overthrowing governments in Tunisia, Libya, and Egypt, protests erupted in Tehran on February 14th, the Day of Rage. But Khamenei was determined not to follow Egypt's Hosni Mubarak into exile. He sent in the Revolutionary Guard and even Hezbollah units from Lebanon to crush the opposition with overwhelming force. While the Arab Spring toppled multiple regimes, Iran's authoritarian structure held firm under Khamenei's iron grip. The Axis collapses. By early 2023, Iran appeared regionally powerful. Its proxies controlled southern Lebanon and Gaza. The Houthis were winning in Yemen. Iran had deep ties with Russia and China, supplying Moscow with thousands of drones for its Ukraine war. Then came October 7, 2023. Hamas launched devastating attacks on Israel, killing approximately 1,200 people, taking 250 hostages, and committing widespread atrocities. Israel's retaliation was overwhelming and methodical. The Gaza war that followed saw Hamas systematically dismantled. Hezbollah opened a second front, firing rockets into northern Israel. In September 2024, Israel responded with an extraordinary operation. Thousands of Hezbollah pagers and walkie-talkies simultaneously exploded, and killing and maiming operatives across Lebanon. Days later, Israeli airstrikes killed Hezbollah leader Hassan Nasrallah, Khamenei's closest regional ally. In April, July, and October 2024, Iran and Israel traded direct missile attacks for the first time in their history. Khamenei's decades-old strategy of using proxies while avoiding direct confrontation had failed. The final strikes, throughout 2025, the conflict escalated dramatically. Israel's military campaign systematically destroyed Hamas's infrastructure in Gaza and decimated Hezbollah's capabilities in Lebanon. The Houthis in Yemen faced extensive U.S. and allied airstrikes that crippled their ability to threaten Red Sea shipping. Iran's nuclear facilities became the primary target. In multiple waves between late 2025 and early 2026, Israeli warplanes, supported by U.S. intelligence and aerial refueling, struck Iran's nuclear sites at Natanz, Fordo, and Isfahan. Now, the attacks killed dozens of nuclear scientists and set Iran's program back by years, possibly decades. Khamenei went into deep hiding, moving between secure bunkers. He prepared detailed succession plans, naming potential successors, and recording video messages to be released upon his death. The 85-year-old supreme leader, already in declining health with rumors of Parkinson's disease, knew his time was running out. On February 28, 2026, coordinated U.S. and Israeli strikes targeted a secure compound where intelligence indicated Khamenei was sheltering. The precision strikes killed the supreme leader, along with several top Revolutionary Guard commanders and senior clerics. Iran confirmed his death the following day, March 1, 2026. Ali Khamenei had survived an assassination attempt in 1981 that left him permanently disabled. He had outlasted multiple American presidents, weathered decades of sanctions, crushed countless domestic protests, and ruled Iran for 37 years. But in the end, the regional war he had spent decades preparing for consumed him. A catastrophic legacy. Khamenei's death marked the end of an era that brought Iran nothing but suffering. His 37-year rule saw an economy crippled by sanctions, with GDP per capita comparable to Algeria and Bolivia, despite vast oil wealth, systematic human rights abuses through the morality police and security forces, the complete destruction of Iran's regional proxy network, the deaths of hundreds of thousands in proxy wars across Gaza, Lebanon, Syria, Yemen, and Iraq, international isolation that left Iran dependent on pariah states like Russia and North Korea, the near-total destruction of Iran's nuclear program in 2025 to 2026. For ordinary Iranians, Khamenei's endless crusade against Israel and the West brought only misery. Decades of struggle under authoritarian repression and economic devastation, all for a proxy war that Iran decisively lost. What comes next? Iran now faces its greatest uncertainty since 1979. The succession process has begun, with the Assembly of Experts meeting to choose the third supreme leader. Early reports suggest deep divisions between hardliners who want to continue Khamenei's policies and pragmatists who recognize the catastrophic failure of his approach. The reform movement that Khamenei crushed in the 2000s may finally have its chance. Millions of young Iranians, particularly women who led the 2022 protests, are demanding fundamental change. Some are even calling for the end of the Islamic Republic itself and a return to secular democratic governance. Will Iran continue down the authoritarian religious path Khamenei carved? Or will his death finally allow the country to chart a new course? The answer will determine not just Iran's future, but the stability of the entire Middle East. Ali Khamenei spent 45 years defying death and crushing his enemies. But in the end, the war he built his legacy on destroyed both his proxy empire and, ultimately, himself. Whether Iran can recover from the ruins of his rule remains the great question of 2026.